Hello students, welcome in our today's session. This is Anita Goswami, Assistant Professor of English, Government College Rajgarh Churu. So students, our today's topic is literary terms, paradox, antithesis and oxymoron. And these particular terms have been prescribed in the course of BA Part 3rd of Paper 1st English Literature. So today we shall talk about these important literary terms, paradox, antithesis and oxymoron. So let's start from the outset of this lecture. Now we will talk about paradox. So what is paradox? Here actually paradox, the word paradox finds its origin from the Greek word paradoxos. Its meaning contrary to expectation or existing belief. So paradox is a statement which seems on its face logically contradictory, absurd, or against some of traditional ideas, and yet it turns out to be interpretable in a way and makes the reader to think in any innovative fashion. It contains some kind of kernel of truth or reason. Kernel means the essence, the center, the core of something. So a paradox is a figure of speech that seems to be contradict itself, but which upon further examination contains some kernel of truth or reason. So the poet or writers, they use paradox simply to express their astonishment, their unexpected or enigmatic kind of things wrapped through the words. So there are so many writers who have used paradox in prose and in verse as well. And here I have cited some of examples from literary piece or from some of literary writings, as we can find here in the first example in William Shakespeare's Hamlet, William Shakespeare's tragedy Hamlet. We find that when the Prince Hamlet, he tells to his mother what he said in the literary line. I have underlined this line where the paradox is used by the writer, by the poet. What does it say? I must be cruel only to be kind. So in this particular line, the dramatist has used paradox. When Hamlet tells his mother that I must be cruel only to be kind, so how can a person who is cruel by nature, and the reason for his cruelty, that why he must be cruel only to be kind? So a cruel person, how can he be a kind person? So here the dramatist is using a paradox to express that his behavior, while it may appear to be cruel, is actually a form of kindness. But that's only if you interpret his kindness to include harsh conditions, harsh actions that may be better for everyone in the long run. So as we find that in the end of this play, that Hamlet, who turns out to be wrong, as everybody is dead in the play at the end. So this type of paradox called literary paradox, and we can find so many literary instances of paradox in other writers writings as well. As we find here the another example in George Orwell's novel 1984, where the novelist he said, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. So here the novelist has uses very contradictory things in the words, in the phrases, like where he says war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. As we are familiar that some of you might have read this novel. If you have read 1984, so we find that here George Orwell imagines a totalitarian government designed on purpose to have contradictory claims as its very core. So here we find the contradictions in these lines. War is peace. How, when there is a war, how can peace be managed? How can peace is managed there? And if there is freedom, then freedom is slavery. So how can be freedom? How can freedom be synonyms of slavery? Because these are two very contradictory things. Ignorance is strength. How can ignorant person be strong? So here the general population of because we find in the novel that this is a dystopia, and there are contradictory things inherent in all these phrases, where Orwell sees that the society is so dangerous, and in his literary language he says when expresses the about the ruling party that has gained power and that has maintained power to wage constant war in the state, so and nurture general ignorance of the people, precisely annihilating meaning in language. So we find that these things can be possible when by using paradox. And in another example of George Bernard Shaw's Man and Superman, in this drama where Bernard Shaw has used this line, the golden rule is that there are no golden rules. So this statement has been taken from George Bernard's play Man and Superman. So here Shaw uses his protagonist to express many of his unconventional ideas about society. So this statement, the golden rule is that there are no golden rules, it undermines the sanctity of the traditional golden rule, that is suggesting a more flexible worldview. It creates a paradox. However, since a golden rule against golden rules would seem to defeat its own authority, so this makes it similar to the classic paradox, where when say that this sentence is a lie from logic, this liar's logic. So how can be a liar statement can be a logic? So next we have antithesis, another literary device. And antithesis is also has been taken from the Greek word which meaning setting opposite. So setting opposite, this also expresses contrast or opposition in meaning, but it is slightly different from paradox in the sense that there is, in antithesis we find contrast or opposition in meaning in similar word order or structures in its syntax, or we find similar grammatical structures where the contrast is used, the opposite meaning in opposition has been used by poet or by writer. So antithesis is a figure of speech that juxtaposes two contrasting or opposing ideas, usually within parallel grammatical structures. So in antithesis we find that there must be parallel grammatical structures in both of the clauses, and in a way we can say there is a parallelism in both of these sentences or structures. It actually describes something as being the opposite of another thing. And if we talk about the examples, so here the very first example I have used here, that is, to err is human, to forgive divine. So this example has been taken from Alexander Pope's writing an essay on criticism, where he says, to err is human, to forgive divine. So here we find a parallelism, that the grammatical structure is same, that here two clauses of the sentence are parallel because each starts off with an infinitive verb to. Here the infinitive verb to err, to forgive, and is used here, and it also ends with an adjective, as we see here in the first clause adjective human has been used, and divine, that is in the next second clause we find divine adjective have been used. So the mirroring of these elements that works to emphasize the contrast in their content, particularly in very strong opposite contrast between human and divine. And there is a novel by Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. So this very the very opening line of this novel contains antithesis, as we find here. I have taken the lines also here, as in to clarify you that it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. So in these famous opening lines of A Tale of Two Cities by Dickens, who sets out that a flowing list of antitheses punctuated by repetition of the word it was, as we find at the beginning of each clause, it was has been used by the novelist. And building this list of contrast, Dickens sets the scene of French Revolution at that time. Okay, the setting of this novel we find when we read the novel, and here the contrasting ideas has been highlighted by the novelist when he say it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So two contrary ideas or concepts has been used in similar grammatical structures. And wisdom, when he says it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. So we find that there is a parallelism. And if we talk about another example, in John Milton's Paradise Lost, we find that in the verse form, that where Milton's anti-hero Satan, who claims that he is happier as the king of hell than he could ever have been as a servant in heaven. So when he says that better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, so here the antithesis has been used, highlighted by these two phrases, or better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. So here the Satan, who justifies his rebellion against God with his pithy phrase, and Milton have expresses his remarks by using antithesis when he says better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Now next we have oxymoron, and oxymoron is also in some way similar to paradox, that it also contains two contradictory terms or ideas which are intensely paired, and there is also a hidden truth behind the idea. So an oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two contradictory terms or ideas are intensely paired in order to make a point, particularly to reveal a deeper or hidden truth. So we find here that oxymoron actually deliberately uses two ideas, and the contradiction creates a paradoxical image in the reader or listener's mind that generates a new concept or meaning for the whole. And there are so many examples as I have taken here, since the line from Shakespeare's tragedy Macbeth, where here there is a line, fair is fall and fall is fair. So the following oxymoron occurs repeatedly throughout the Macbeth. So this example in the play's opening scene, it is a part of charm chanted by the witches, where witches say in their choric song like fair is fall and four is fair. So in this particular scene, oxymoron speaks to witches' evil character, where they have inverted in moral code that values the fall and dislikes the fair. So actually here the dramatist who is establishing the witch's cruelty, the nature of cruel nature of witches in the line, by using oxymoron to the audience, that a kind of warning to the characters who seem fair may be fall and vice versa. So there is a drama of simplicity in this fair is fall oxymoron. It becomes a refrain as the play goes on and their characters begin to act accordingly to their more code. And in another example, sweet sorrow. So this phrase we find in Romeo and Juliet, a play by William Shakespeare, where Juliet, who tells Romeo that parting is such sweet sorrow. So here oxymoron that boils contradiction down to few words, where in paradox we find there is a contradictory thing, there are contradictory things in the whole sentence, but in oxymoron the contradictory things are just the contradiction, just down to a few words. So while an oxymoron is usually made of just two words, we can say, and a paradox can be expressed in many different ways as a concept or a description of a situation as well. So in the example Romeo and Juliet, when Juliet tells Romeo that parting is such sweet sorrow, so here the oxymoron sweet sorrow suggests a deeper paradox in the play, that Juliet's pain at parting with Romeo even for a night is cause for joy, since it testifies to the strength of their love. This same paradox could also be expressed without the use of poetic oxymoron, when for instance when Juliet says that something like my sorrow makes me happy. So here also the oxymoron poetic oxymoron has been expressed by the dramatist, and the similar we can find in the phrase darkness visible. And so now, like this, we have discussed about three important literary devices which have been used thoroughly by different writers, poets, and paradox, antithesis, and oxymoron. So that's all for today, and I hope you have well understood it. Thank you, students.